昨日ドジャースに加入を表明したブレイクスネル選手の話題が現地ではトップニュースとして扱われています。そして同時にドジャースに対する半ば嫉妬のような恨み節のような声も聞こえてきていました。今日はスネル選手の移籍関連情報の現地の反応をまとめてお送りいたします。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーを中心にメジャーの気になるニュースを翻訳してお届けしております。お見逃しのないよう今のうちにチャンネル登録をお願いいたします。
Hot Stove is presented by the United States Marine Corps. Welcome. Happy Thanksgiving Eve. Alongside Anthony Recker, I'm Robert Flores, and the Hot Stove is piping
It's
hot.
going. Here we go. It finally got, it took a little while, but it's, yeah, we got a big name off the board.
Yeah, we do. And let's just dive into it right now, because late last night, depending on where you were and what part of the country, how late you're up.
Yeah.
While you were watching something else, I was watching my University of Houston Cougars lose in overtime to the Alabama Crimson Tide. University of Houston, you need another offensive scorer besides L.J. Cryer, but that's neither here nor there. This is what Blake Snell put on his Instagram, Snellzilla4. I saw this because I follow him on IG, and I said, oh, well, this is fun. He's putting a little Photoshop of him in different uniforms of potential suitors. But Anthony, his next post or the news that followed was, yeah, I'm signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I mean, rich get richer, right?
That's, no doubt.
Wow.
It is a 5-year, $182 million deal. That is the report. However, Anthony, there are some caveats. One, $60 million in deferrals. Two, a reported $52 million signing bonus, tax-free because he lives in the state of Washington,
no state
which
tax
I did not know did not have a state tax. So shout out to Washington. But we were talking before the show. The Dodgers keep doing things with their contracts where you go, man, I didn't know they could do that. Like, oh, they could offer a guy a planet and a unicorn? I didn't know that they could do that. The Dodgers continue to amaze and are throwing the gauntlet down for the rest of the league.
I mean, and why not? When you have such a successful offseason as they did last year, where they signed away a lot of money, and then they come back the next year, and you know, by all projections and what we've heard or what I've heard is that they exceeded expectations as far as just the amount of revenue that those two major signings in obviously Yamamoto and Ohtani, what that brought in for them. And now you fast forward to this year, it's like, okay, now we have a little bit more money than we thought we would have. Here's a luxury signing. This is what we get to do with it. And when I think of the Dodgers and what they're doing with these contracts, I mentioned this on the call I mentioned earlier, it reminds me of what they do in football with contracts, that we didn't know you could get this creative with the way that you handle what is essentially the CBA tax. It's not, you know, a hard cap, obviously, but it's meant to work as one, not necessarily a hard cap, soft. It's meant to work as a soft cap almost. And they're finding ways to do deals and figure out ways to kind of push money elsewhere so that when it comes to that AAV and the way the CBA recognizes these contracts, it doesn't hit as hard when it comes to their luxury tax number. And so they're able to add a little bit more talent than you would expect.
Yeah, we're just beginning to dive in on this big story here as the Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series champions, have made a statement early on in this offseason.
When I look at Blake Snell, and those numbers right there, I didn't know he had passed Chris Sale for the all-time
Ks
per nine. Obviously, he's now eligible, is I'm assuming what happened. But Blake Snell, he has the ability to, you know, kind of come in and is he going to give you 8 innings every time out, every 5th day? Not necessarily. But when you look at the Dodgers and what they have, this is a team that didn't necessarily need that. They've got a lot of guys who have incredible ability, you know, especially from a starting rotation standpoint. So this is a luxury signing, a guy who can come in and dominate at times, throw a no-hitter, you know, has the potential to go out there and go 8 or 9 if he's right that day. If he's not walking guys, he can keep his pitch count down. This really, to me, solidifies not just, you know, we knew the Dodgers were going to be great for many years to come, but the fact that you're able to go out and get a guy like this, bring him into your rotation, it really speaks to where Major League Baseball is within the industry. Is this going to be another super team type of an era? Not just the Dodgers, but are other teams going to try to emulate this? Will they be able to emulate this? It's going to be really fun to watch over this offseason. This is going to be a fascinating offseason.
Well, this tweet here from our good friend Sarah Langs, Cy Young Award winners to join a reigning World Series champion the following offseason. Blake Snell, of course, this offseason, and then Roger Clemens joining the Yankees after he was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays in 1999. The other thing to consider is Roki Sasaki is a very real possibility for the Dodgers. So let's just say, I think we have the board. Maybe we've shown it earlier. If we could put it up again. You've got Tyler Glasnow. You've got Yamamoto. You've got Blake Snell. Yeah, here we go. You've got Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, Bobby Miller.
Don't forget about Shohei.
And oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani, the guy that had 50-50, he's now joining the rotation.
Have you
as
seen
well.
Roki Sasaki stuff?
I have.
I mean, to think about the stuff that they already have within the, I mean, Dustin May throws 1 billion miles an hour with more movement than I've ever seen. We saw what Yamamoto can do. We know what Tyler Glasnow can do. Ohtani is finished second in the Cy Young once or twice, right? These guys all have incredible stuff.
And they're going to have a six-man
rotation. You could add at
least.
100%.
That's happening.
It makes a ton of sense. I mean, well, Yamamoto and Ohtani have traditionally been on 7-day rotations.
Yep.
And now it'll be more of like a 6-day rotation. But if Sasaki comes over and he is a part of this rotation, obviously it makes a lot of sense for him too. I mean, at some point you kind of go, okay, somebody else needs a shot at this. And you want to think that some of these guys want to be the guy on a team. I don't know if that's Roki Sasaki. Obviously I don't know him personally. It'll be interesting to see where he makes his decision because he can't get, it's not going to be the most money, right? He's max $7-point-some million. Right. Is the most any team has in that international pool. We'll see. All that said, I mean, that just means that anyone could sign him.
Sure. Well, Robert, Anthony, first of all, happy Thanksgiving. And yes, we do love it when the player himself puts it out there. It's a pretty good source when it comes right from the player.
Got to trust it.
All the ambiguity is gone. Blake Snell, a Dodger. One fun note as we get started, the Dodgers now have half of the Rays starting rotation from the 2020 World Series with Snell and Glasnow just 4 years ago. How about that? And of course, Andrew Friedman was the Rays GM when Snell was drafted by them back in 2011. So some good biographical notes there. But the most important thing financially, guys, is this. Snell now has the second highest AAV of any pitching-only contract of 5 years or more in the history of the game, trailing only Jacob deGrom. If I'm a pitcher out there right now, it's a very healthy number to begin the year. And let's also make this point. As you alluded to it earlier, Robert, that Snell has signed 112 days earlier in this offseason cycle than he did a year ago. More than 3 months ahead of time based on last year's schedule, and for good reason. He had that bumpy start to the year, and when you look at what his ERA was in April and May, he was not fully healthy yet. And if you were to tell us at that point in time that he'd be signing for $182 million, we didn't necessarily see that coming. But it's because of what Blake did in the second half of the year. His final 14 starts, an ERA of 1.23. Dominance from a two-time winner of the Cy Young Award. And the other thing Robert and Anthony did set out to be is he actually lowered his walk rate. A lot of the conversation last year coming off of the Cy Young season with the Padres was the walk rate and the concerns that teams had about strike throwing. Well, he actually lowered the walk rate.
Yeah.
He bumped up the strikeout rate. So the peripheral numbers are very strong. And again, you see there what he did the final 14 starts. The interesting secondary note on this for the Dodgers that I think we should not lose track of is it probably, not certainly, but probably means that Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty won't be back in 2025 based on the market dynamics.
Yeah.
And Jack Flaherty was one of the most consistent pitchers for the Dodgers in the playoffs. They don't win the World Series without Jack Flaherty. And Walker Buehler threw the last pitch. So those are two really important guys in the Dodger rotation who will likely not be back in 2025. And listen, it's a trade that most of us would say, yeah, it's a good trade in terms of talent and potential. You're basically trading Flaherty and Buehler out for Snell and Ohtani in. But we also have to realize Ohtani, especially given the injury in the World Series, there's a very real chance he's not ready to go on the mound on opening day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's important to put that context in mind, that let's not let the moment escape without recognizing the importance of Buehler and Flaherty to the Dodgers World Series championship.
JP, real quick, what does this mean for Burns, for Fried, for Flaherty? Now that we have two kind of data points, Blake Snell and then Yusei Kikuchi, who also signed his deal a few days, or agreed to his deal a few days ago.
Right, very healthy numbers. I think this contract is good news for Burns, Fried, Flaherty, Buehler, and many others. I think Mark Feinsand's piece this morning at MLB.com did a great job of explaining just where that market sits and the importance now for teams like the Red Sox and the Orioles, and to some extent the Yankees, to really get to work on filling some needs. I would also say the San Diego Padres, who gave the Dodgers their biggest challenge, they're one starting pitcher away as well. There's a lot of starters still out there. And by the way, I certainly want to point out Clayton Kershaw's name on the left-hand side of the screen. There's still a pretty healthy expectation he's going to be back with the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2025. Shane Bieber's name is really interesting. Maybe he's someone that signs a little bit later and returns during the season. But I think that, of course, the Juan Soto sweepstakes looms above all of this. And if the Red Sox are able to interrupt what is seen as a New York storyline between the Mets and the Yankees, but we are probably going to see some bidding wars between those two arch rivals in the American League East, and the Yankees and Red Sox for pitching, and the Orioles guys, they were not good enough to get past the Kansas City Royals with Corbin Burns.
Correct.
They have got some work to do this offseason.
Well, Anthony, and I want to bring you in here because I'm glad he mentions the Orioles.
Yeah.
And the men or the people that are there are many of them came from Houston. They were part of the building of that.
Yeah.
But Houston didn't become Houston until they got Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
Via trade. They need a big ticket front line starter. Grayson Rodriguez has the potential to do that, but he's young and he's injured.
And Zach Eflin has proven that he can be a nice piece,
Yes.
but is he that frontline guy? Not necessarily. They get that, and then you start to lengthen out that starting rotation. Obviously, they have some guys who are injured, that they look to get back at some point, whether it's Kyle Bradish or Tyler Wells. I think when you look at the names that they have, though, they have a decent rotation in place, but it's going to be, can you get that guy at the top of the rotation? Can you get that big arm that can really take you over the top? They had the chance this past year with Burns. Things fell apart, though, towards the end of the year, with guys not being healthy, Rodriguez not throwing the way that they wanted him to, and things just didn't work out. That bullpen right now, it could be a big strength. They have a lot of big names back there, and so they could attack things in a different way if they don't get that frontline starter and really even continue to beef up that bullpen and see if that helps them long term.
Hey, JP, we're up against it, so give us a couple of quick hitters. One on Garrett Crochet, latest on him, and then Nathan Eovaldi.
Yes, so Garrett Crochet, trade-wise, pay really close attention to the Boston Red Sox. They're the team that they have the prospects, especially if they don't get a Burns or if they don't get a Fried, and we'll see how things play out with Juan Soto. You think about the Red Sox and how disappointing this past season was. They need to make a massive move here. And if it's not going to be in free agency, if they don't get Soto, then pay really close attention on a possible Garrett Crochet trade. They've got the prospects to get it done. And remember, the White Sox, if they make this move, I was told again this week, there's been some reports about Willie Abreu possibly being part of this conversation. I was told the White Sox are so far away from what they perceive to be their competitive window that they would prefer to get prospects who have not even debuted yet in the major league, whether it's an Anthony or Meyer or a Campbell. Now, finally, on Eovaldi, the Atlanta Braves, I'm told, are potentially in there along with the Baltimore Orioles. So with Nate Eovaldi, he has that postseason resume, guys, of being someone that you trust in a big spot in October.
Definitely.
And so again, you just talked about the Orioles. I love the Eovaldi fit to Baltimore as someone with that postseason track record to give them a bit more belief once they arrive to October.
All right. Well, JP, thanks for joining us, Matt, and great insight. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great holiday with the family tomorrow. Christopher Mad Dog Russo joining us on this edition of Hot Stove. Mad Dog, good to see you. Blake Snell, surprising just about the entire baseball industry. When he broke the news himself on his Instagram, he's going to the Dodgers. What's your take on that?
Yeah, listen, to me, I don't think it's good for baseball, number one. How many guys can the Dodgers sign? I understand that they needed some pitching, but, geez, they're going to get the Japanese kid, too. I mean, when is enough enough? I mean, that was my first take on it. It's a good baseball move. You get another pitcher in there. He's obviously very, very good if he stays healthy. My second observation, my second thought was the poor Giants. I mean, the Giants are a disaster. Why would anybody want to go play for San Francisco right now? They're never going to win. You got the Dodgers, who are going to win another divisional championship. You got San Diego, that's got obviously, Machado sitting there. They got big stars. The Giants don't have any stars. And the Giants, this is a huge hit for the franchise. So that bothered me, too. So from a Giant perspective, they lose their best pitcher to a team, their main rival that does nothing but win. And the Dodgers, who have what? A $300 million payroll? Now it's $350 million. When is enough? I mean, listen, I understand you want to make him the villain. Go ahead. No, they're not going to get Soto now. But to me, it's way over the top. That was my take from afar. From just looking at this from a baseball standpoint, baseball can't be happy that the Dodgers, who spent $320 million on Yamamoto, another whatever it was last year on Ohtani, going to get the kid from Japan, and now they get him after they gave Glasnow $160 million.
Yeah.
When is enough for crying out loud?
Well, this is America, Mad Dog, and it is never enough. Once again, the big news on this Thanksgiving Eve, Blake Snell reported to have agreed to a 5-year, $182 million deal. We know he's going there because he posted about it himself on Instagram.
Snellzilla 4.
What he did not post was the financials. If I had the Matt Vasgersian soundboard, I would bring up the Dero soundbite talking about the financials. But a $52 million signing bonus is part of this new transaction. And for more, let's bring in Fabian Ardaya, who covers the Los Angeles Dodgers for The Athletic, and he joins us now. Fabian, we appreciate the time. What did you make of this news? What was your reaction when you first heard?
I think it was more surprising by the timing, maybe, just considering it was right before Thanksgiving, but not surprised at all by the fit. I think it sort of looked at the way Dodgers were kind of going to approach this winter. They're clearly going to operate at the top of the pitching market. I don't think there's a person that made more sense for the Dodgers than Blake Snell, just because of the premium stuff, what they value. You could argue that Blake Snell is the best pitcher on the market, and especially with what makes sense for the Dodgers, how they want to approach the rotation, the fact that they're probably going to go with the 6-man rotation. This kind of opens up the rest of their offseason for them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the Dodgers check in on Blake Snell late in his free agency last offseason and also approach the Giants about a possible deal during the summer, yes?
Yes, yeah, they made a late run at him last year. I think sort of the way they always kind of approach these top-end free agents historically has been kind of waiting around, seeing if the market doesn't quite build up the way they wanted it to. And for Snell, that was kind of the case, so the Dodgers kind of jumped in late. And then, obviously, he wound up signing with the Giants. But even then, at the deadline, they expressed some interest, especially, obviously, with where the pitching was at. But the Giants trading with the Dodgers, I think, would have caused a conniption between both fan bases. So that didn't wind up happening. But Blake Snell's a guy that the Dodgers have been interested in for quite some time. Obviously, Andrew Friedman's the guy who drafted him with Tampa Bay, and they've obviously had a lot of mutual interest for a while.
I'd say, to your point, I think the timing of this surprised a lot of people. That's probably why I'm on the show. Harold probably didn't expect this to happen, so that's why I'm here. But that aside, I think, does this take the Dodgers, I would assume it doesn't, but does this take the Dodgers out of any other of the free agents that we've heard about, for this offseason, or are they still in the big market?
I think after they spent $1.4 billion last offseason, you can't really count them out on anyone.
Fair.
They've been in the Juan Soto stakes, but obviously we don't know where they kind of stand there. I think we sort of view the New York teams probably as the front runners there. But I think that they're still going to be pursuing Teoscar Hernandez, trying to bring him back. Some of the other pieces that they have, maybe someone like Walker Buehler makes some sense. Bringing back Kike Hernandez makes some sense. And of course, financially, there's nothing that's going to rule them out of Roki Sasaki sweepstakes when he is eventually posted. And he's a guy who the Dodgers have been obsessed with for a while. So I don't think it necessarily rules them out of anything, but obviously it sort of sets the template for what the rest of their offseason is going to look like.
Fabian, it was mentioned earlier on this show that the Dodgers, you could argue, won the World Series in spite of their rotation, not because of. The fact that they pulled it off, and now they are assembling what is a monstrous rotation with the possibility of adding even more, i.e. Sasaki. This Dodgers team looks like they are sending a clear message to the rest of the league. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is their window. Like, I think they kind of always talked about, like, they don't really view things in terms of windows. They try to keep it perpetually open. But I think if you sort of commit the kind of money you did last winter, this is your sort of your window, especially with how Shohei Ohtani structured his contract. You're not paying him much in real dollars right now, which allows them to maybe take advantage of it. I think obviously they know they're going to kind of eat it when it comes to the CBT for a while now, but I think they're comfortable operating in those waters and they know how to sort of navigate some of the penalties there, but they still are able to be in a position where they have enough real money on hand that they're going to use it towards winning. And you sort of saw that last year. I think if you had told them last year that they had pitching injuries that they had, even with the season that Shohei Ohtani did, but if Freddie Freeman was going to miss time, Mookie Betts was going to miss time, you say, okay, that's a year during this window that they didn't win a World Series. They did win the World Series, so that everything else from this point is kind of gold, and you're kind of going to keep pushing your chips in, try to keep this going.
What's next? What should we be on the lookout for from the Dodgers as this hot stove and offseason rolls on?
I think it's an upset that Teoscar Hernandez wasn't the first guy they tried to sign this winter, just because of how obvious the fit is between the two sides for them to come back and have a reunion. I know after the parade, Teoscar Hernandez was kind of like, I would sign tomorrow. Obviously, that hasn't happened, but he's a guy who makes so much sense for what the Dodgers want and need, especially with the corner outfielder need now with Mookie Betts moving back to the infield. So I think he's the guy maybe, especially if Juan Soto winds up wanting to go elsewhere, he's a guy who's sort of high on the radar, and obviously we'll sort of see what happens when rookie Sasaki is eventually posted.
Fabian Ardaya covering the Los Angeles Dodgers for The Athletic. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for hopping on and relative short notice. Enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday and enjoy the rest of your offseason.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
You got it. He mentioned the bills that are coming due. Like 7-10 years from now, parking at Dodger Stadium is going to be $500.
Well, I think that's part of the thing that fans don't understand when they're so excited about, getting these players. And I don't care how much you spend whatever. That comes back to you eventually.
Exactly.
And I will say, look, for the Dodgers, the way that baseball is structured right now, because of the CBA and with the tax and everything else, they have put themselves in a situation to take advantage of that, right? They're making so much money that they can spend so much money and be this super team. They found a way to bring up and produce great talent, young talent, that they go fishing in the big market. They bring up a lot of great young talent. If they need to make a trade, they have guys they can do that with, but otherwise they're ready to play. And they're really taking advantage of that. So now the question for me is, what happens come the next CBA? And is there a response from maybe 25 of the other teams that can't do what the Dodgers, because there are some that can, but is there a response from those 25 teams to see what they can do to try to counteract what the Dodgers have become now, which is going to be a perennial power?
Hey, like Lauren Shahadi says, don't be bitter, be better.
That's right.
みんなの憎まれ役、ルッソ氏の魂の嘆きともいえる悔しがり方は正直面白かったですね。ジャイアンツファンを公言しているだけに、どう反応するのか楽しみに見ていましたが、想像の5倍くらい悔しがってるのが伝わって、思わず爆笑でした。しかし改めて見てみると強力無比な先発陣が出来上がっていますね。ソト選手の契約次第でテオスカー・ヘルナンデス選手の獲得に動きそうではありますが、来年のドジャースのメンバーも本当に楽しみです。そして昨日、開幕戦のチケット発売に関するニュースが舞い込んできましたね。12月9日に抽選発売開始とのことで、私も全力で全ての席の抽選に申し込みたいと思います。抽選の結果等も後々お伝えできればと思いますので、お楽しみに。チケット抽選申し込むよ手法はぜひコメント欄で教えてください。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。